And he said, "You will read this." And he brought everybody up, and he stuck the MPP in front of me, and he said, "You will read it because you could have caused thousands of dollars of mistakes and could have killed somebody."
Hello, I'd like to welcome you today to Worth Quoting. Worth Quoting is a production of Open Campus at Florida Community College in Jacksonville, and I'm Peggy Bald from the Women's Center, and today we have Judith Pisano as our guest. Judy's an instructor with the Red Cross, and she's going to be talking to us about literacy. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you.
Judy, I know you grew up in Ohio in the Cincinnati area, and interestingly enough, although you went to school for many years, you didn't learn to read until you were in your 40s. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up in Cincinnati and what the schools were like?
I guess really in order to do that, I'd have to tell you that where we lived in a HUD property, and we were the children that people didn't really pay too much attention to us. And we were surrounded by very nice homes, people with a little more money, and that's who the teachers really paid attention to. So if we couldn't read something, they pretty well passed us over or put us in the back, or a lot of times they would just tell us, why don't you just go sit down, and they would get someone else to do it. So we really got by. All my report cards, and you can go back and check them, they all have D's and F's on them, and they passed us really not thinking that we were going to amount to anything anyway. So why would they put that time into us?
So you're saying that the school system, because you were poor, didn't give you any kind of attention and passed you from grade to grade?
Mm-hmm. I went through the school system. When I came out of school, at the age of 14, and I was probably, by listening to other kids and picking up some, I was probably on a second grade level. So I could read words, some words, but not enough to fill out an application or to do a book report or to do any of the things that are required from the school.
Mm-hmm. You came out of school at 14. Was there a reason?
I wanted to get married. We were leaving that school and going into a junior high school. And I knew that once I went into the junior high school that they would expect us to read. And I had to get married before they sent me over there. I wanted to get married.
What grade were you going into?
Well, we were coming out of probably I think it was the 9th grade.
Going into the 9th grade?
And I missed half of my 8th grade year.
Right.
I just didn't go to school half the time. Nobody came and got me.
You just played hooky, so to speak?
Home. Just stayed home. I wasn't doing anything anyway. I wasn't making good grades. I was just taking up space. When I didn't show up, no one came after us anyway, so it didn't really matter. Yeah.
So you just went through school for 9 years and really didn't learn too much?
It was really 8 years.
8 years?
Really 8 years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't, I was just there. I liked recess, and I was just there. I didn't do really anything. I mean, I must have picked up something along the way, but I wasn't applying it. I wasn't putting it to any use. I couldn't read a book. I couldn't write a Christmas card. I couldn't write a letter. I couldn't do those things. If you wrote me a letter, I couldn't answer you. I couldn't even read half of it.
Mm-hmm. But you got married?
Mm-hmm. Got married.
Tell me about that.
Well, when you get married, you don't have to go back to school, especially if you get pregnant. So I made sure that I got pregnant right away so that I wouldn't have to attend school. And that was my comfort zone. I was married, going to have a baby, and I was able to stay home. Then I was sure no one would come after me. So that's what I wanted to do. And I had my first baby when I was 15.
You had your first baby at 15.
Mm-hmm.
How did you raise a baby? And I know you've had other children too. How did you raise a baby not being able to read?
It's very easy. I knew how to clean myself, so I knew how to take care of a baby. You wash them, you feed them, you walk them, you rock them, you take care of them. And you teach them, you say no to them, they're babies. And I had a husband who could read, a husband who could do a lot of things that I couldn't do. So what I couldn't do, he picked up on. But I always took care of babies.
Mm-hmm.
So that part was very easy. Cooking was very easy. I couldn't read like you might be able to pick up a recipe book. I couldn't read. My mother didn't read. So we were taught to cook from scratch. So cooking was very easy too because you know, I couldn't go to the store like people do today and maybe buy canned biscuits. I didn't know what was in the cans. It was easier for me just to make the biscuits because I knew what flour was, you know. So it was a lot of the things that people do today that I do today, I couldn't do back then.
Mm-hmm. What did you do with your own children when they went to school? How did you help them with their homework?
I didn't.
You didn't help your children with your homework?
I never helped my children, no. My husband did. My husband helped them until he got sick. I lost my first husband to cancer, and then I couldn't help them at all. So I had them help each other. I always made sure my kids got an education. And all my children now are college graduates and very good jobs.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
How did your children feel about you not being able to read when they were growing up?
Oh, they didn't know.
They didn't know?
No.
How did you manage to hide that fact from them?
I hid that from the world. And most adult people who are illiterate do. And it's called adult social skills. You do things, if the mail comes, you send the children after the mail. And you give everybody a job. And whoever goes to get the mail, it's their day to read the mail. So you know what's junk and what's a bill.
So you got the kids to read your mail to you?
I got the kids to do everything. I got the kids to shop for me, to read my mail, to write my Christmas cards, to write any letters, to do everything.
What would you do if one of the kids got sick?
Get another child. I had several kids.
So would you have the other child take down the information for the medicine and...
Well, I really didn't have that problem. The doctor wrote the prescription, and you just hand it to the pharmacy, and he gives it to you.
Okay.
Then you ask the pharmacy what you're supposed to... I didn't read it. I'd say, how do I take it? And he would tell me, and that's what I did. Yeah.
So instead of reading, you would ask someone to tell you what the directions on the label were and so forth. Well, after doing this so successfully for so long, why did you ever decide that you needed to learn to read?
My second husband got sick.
Your second husband got sick.
He got very ill. And I knew that I was too old to have any more kids, couldn't go on welfare. And that's how I was raised, thinking if you have children, you can go on welfare. That's why I had so many kids.
What do you mean that's how you were raised?
Well, when you live in a HUD property, most people there are on welfare. The more children you have, the more money you get. And that you're raised with that thought. So I was lucky because what happened, I didn't have to worry once I got married. I didn't think about welfare because I had a husband who would, at that time, he would pay the bills. He would take care of things. So I didn't need the check because I had somebody doing that for me.
Okay, so you got married assuming both times that your husband would take care of you forever and ever and ever. And then
it didn't happen.
Didn't happen that way?
It didn't happen, yeah.
Okay, so he got sick, and then what happened?
He told me, at that time, he said, it's time now, you need to start, you may be on your own. I thought he was dying, and they said, he told me, you need to start getting an education. You have to go to school. But I didn't want to go to school. I wasn't ready to go to school. So, but he made me. He said, you have to, because you know, what was I going to do? I had to make an income. I had to have an income for myself. So that's what I started doing.
How did he convince you to go to school?
He just, anything he said, I usually did. He said it, I said it, that must be what I had to do, so it was tough. It was very tough.
Did you manage to work? Did you ever have a job before he got ill?
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was right after he got ill. I started working at Martin Marietta, and I worked on an assembly line at Martin Marietta, and I had to memorize, do a lot of memorizing to do my job.
How did you manage to fill out a job application not being able to read?
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't fill out a job application?
No, I didn't. I went in, again, I used my social skills. I had glasses on that I could pop the lens out of, very easy. And what I did is I went into the office knowing that I wasn't going to fill it out. And when I went in there and sat down, she handed me the application, and I went to arrange my glasses on my face, and the lens came out, and I said, oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry. I said, they're broke, and now I can't do this. And she said, I said, but, you know, she said, well, I'll fill it out for you if you know the answers. I said, I know the answers. So she filled it out for me.
So you got the personnel office at Martin Marietta to read you the job application and fill it out, and they never knew you couldn't read.
No, because you had to read to work at Martin.
And what did you do at Martin?
I worked on the assembly line. I did all the boards. I put all the serial numbers on boards that they were in serialization. And again, I used someone to help me. When you're illiterate, you look around, and what you're looking for is someone who really knows what they're doing. That you're looking for someone who knows their job. And I found this woman who did, and I zeroed in on her, and I said, you know, I'm so new at this, and maybe you can help me. And whenever you ask for help, people love to help you. And she said, why don't you sit next to me? And then I said, well, I don't know what page we're supposed to be on, and she turned the page to it. And then it was my book. So what I did is I turned the page back so that every day I could turn back to that page. And I said, I don't understand this. What does this mean? And she read it to me, but what she read, I was listening to her, and I had a tape recorder, and I memorized every.
Did she know you had a tape recorder?
No.
How did you conceal a tape recorder?
I stuck it in my clothes. And I went home, and I listened to it over and over and over and over until I had memorized every page of my job. And that's how I did it.
How long did you get away with this at Marietta?
The whole time I worked there.
Which was?
Well, then I started reading. I was there 3 years.
You were there 3 years?
Yeah.
And they never found you out?
No, they started promoting me, and I couldn't take the promotions. I couldn't take the promotions because the promotions I had to read, and in some of the promotions you had to go where there were typewriters and computers, and I couldn't take the promotions. And that's when I started reading.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone ever confront you? Anyone ever ask you, why don't you want to be promoted, Judy?
No. No, I was very careful. I made sure I was dressed right. I made sure I looked right. I made sure I looked people straight in the face. My mother used to say, look them in the face and don't let them know. That was my secret. And I would look people straight in the face, and if you even came to me with the thought that maybe I couldn't read, I would be very offended. And I kept myself busy. I was very good with my hands and arts and craft things because I couldn't read, so I had to learn how to make my own stuff. And you keep yourself busy enough that nobody finds out. And when people start to read, you start to get up. I was the first one, if anyone got up, to offer to help serve, to clean, to cook.
What, to serve the coffee
Anything.
Or the cookies or whatever?
Anything. If I went to a baby shower and they started playing the games, I went in the kitchen and started getting the cake ready. I always avoided any situation where there was reading.
How do you get around in a car? I know you drive,
Mm-hmm.
and you've driven for a long time, not being able to read. How did you ever get a driver's license?
Oh, that was easy too. It was verbal. I do everything by landmarks, or I did. I don't know anymore because I read now. But I did everything by landmarks. If someone told me to go someplace, I would ask them, how do I get there? And I carried crayons in my purse, and I carried a pad like you did. I held it up in front of me, and I would scratch down what I wanted to do, excuse myself real fast, and run in and color in. If they said it was a brown fence, I'd put brown crayons on. I got around fine. I had no problems getting around. I did everything that way.
So you just conducted a very normal lifestyle while concealing all the while you couldn't read.
It was normal for me. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And your children didn't know for a long time?
They just found out last year.
They found out last year?
Last year.
How did they find out?
I finally told them.
What was their reaction?
They were shocked. They were shocked. They were upset. They thought I lied to them all these years. They didn't believe me. And then I told them to think back of how I raised them. Think back of how we went shopping, what we did, the things we did.
How did you go shopping? Can we talk some more about that? Because there's so many products when you go to the grocery store, and they're all organized by certain aisles. By the vegetables are in one aisle, and so on and so forth. How did you manage to figure out which products to buy?
That was easy. I did the fruits and vegetables because you can see them. I knew what I wanted. My husband wrote them lists. So what I would have them do is we would go shopping and they would do their list. Each of them would take a buggy and do their list. And when we would get back home, back to meet in our central location, I would have them switch their shopping list to make sure that the other boy got what he was supposed to get. And I told him, this is very important because you need to know these things. You need to know when you go shopping, you need to know how to shop, you need to know how to buy things, and you need to know that you're getting what you really came here for. So I'd make them switch lists, and I would have them read each other's lists to make sure that everything was there that we needed.
So you'd have the kids check up on each other where,
Right.
where you couldn't check up on them.
Because I couldn't do it.
Actually, the grocery store, most of the products there have the pictures on the labels. So.
And if they have pictures, but not everything. If you're looking at toothpaste, everything's, it might say Colgate or different things, but you don't know what kind of toothpaste. So my husband would put what kind of soap. You know it's soap, but you don't know what kind of soap it is. So he would put down what kind we wanted, and that's what they would get. Yeah, that's how we did it. And a lot of times he would go with me. And of course, he could read.
What about restaurants? How do you choose a restaurant when you
Get
can't
a hamburger.
read? You get a hamburger?
Get a hamburger.
Universal hamburger?
Yeah, or a chicken. You asked if they have chicken. And if not, you have your husband order for you. If you're with a crowd, my husband was very good at taking over. And he would just say, the lady would like, and he would say what I liked. Whether I liked it or not, I ate it. And that's how we did it.
Judy, have you had a chance, since you've learned to read, to go back and visit any of your old friends in the Cincinnati area?
Yes, I did.
And what did you find?
It was sad. It was very sad. Not all of them. I didn't find all of them, but I found some of them. And some of them are still living there, and they're still living like that. And they feel there's no way out, or they feel, it's sad. They look poor, they act poor, and you have a tendency to want to hold on to your purse because you're not sure if they're going to take it or not. It's sad.
What about their children? Are their children growing up illiterate too?
Very rough. Very rough. I don't know if they're illiterate. I didn't ask them to read, but they're unruly. They get in trouble a lot. They look rough. They just don't look good. Yeah.
So it seems to be something that's being passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
What do you credit most with your success?
Being pushed.
Being
God.
pushed?
God. Yeah, I would never have gone out. Never. Never.
Never have gone out? How?
Don't make me cry.
I don't want to make you cry.
Okay. No, I would never have left my house.
If you hadn't learned to read?
No. I don't want to do that. No, I was comfortable. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. My whole world has changed. My life has changed. I'm a different person. I act different. I have a good job. I do a lot of different things.
What is your job now?
Well, I work with the Red Cross. And after this, they probably won't want me. I'm an instructor with the American Red Cross. I give many classes, many different classes with the Red Cross.
And what kind of classes are you teaching?
Oh my goodness. I teach HIV and AIDS education. It's a 4-hour class for professionals to get their updates, and they have to have it. I teach a professional class with nurses to get their updates that they have to have every year. I'm getting ready to go into a workplace to teach HIV and AIDS in the workplace. I teach CPR and first aid classes. I teach community classes. I do outreach, a lot of outreach. And I'm getting ready on the 12th to go in to teach a BLS class, which is professional rescuers only. So I teach a lot of different classes.
So you've really come a long way from the little girl in the housing projects who couldn't read.
But anyone can.
Anyone can?
Anyone can. They have to come out, though. They have to walk out. And it's very scary. It's very scary because you're scared of the outside world. It's very comfortable to stay home and not to go out because people are cruel. They're very cruel. But once you go out, it's not that you can't read. What it is you're not taught. No one's taking time with you. But once someone takes time and starts teaching you and training you, you can do it. Anyone can do it. But you have to know what you want to do. You have to know where your heart is first.
Can you tell us what helped you break the ice the most? You mentioned your husband earlier, but what helped you?
Telling someone I couldn't read.
Okay, can you tell us about that?
I finally confessed that I couldn't take a job because I couldn't read.
And who did you confess that?
Gay Martin. She works, she does classes a lot like what I do, and I had taken a class called Professional Woman and bluffed my way through the class and passed it.
Where was that class?
That was at Martin Marietta.
That was at Martin Marietta again?
Mm-hmm. But I couldn't take a job increase because I couldn't read. And I told Gay.
Mm-hmm.
And so she started, and I made her promise not to tell anyone. As a matter of fact, I nearly threatened her with her life. Please don't tell anyone, I will get fired.
Mm-hmm.
So
you were that afraid. Yeah. You were that, even though you were a good worker, you were afraid if you were found out that you'd lose your job.
Mm-hmm. And I nearly lost an illiterate person will not confess, and I nearly lost my job and cost Martin Marietta thousands of dollars because I couldn't read.
Why is that?
They changed the MPP on me.
What's the MPP?
The MPP is what you read. That's your job description. And every day you're supposed to open it up, and that was what I opened, the page I opened to.
That's the little book you referred to earlier that you had tape recorded and memorized.
It's about this thick of a book, yeah.
And they came out with a new book?
They changed something in it, and they put the change in there, and I just opened the page and kept flipping the page because I knew my job. So I would just keep turning it on the page wherever I was working at, and they changed it. And the boards, the circuit boards that I was stamping all looked the same. Mm-hmm. And I grabbed them and just started marking them with numbers that should not have been marked. And I changed them, and as it went down the line, one of the inspectors found it. And what would have happened if these boards had got out, it could have probably, the boards were going in a wrong part of the missile and could have probably killed a lot of people because I couldn't read. So they brought it back in, and my boss at that time came up and called me up front, and he called everybody up front and said, "You didn't read the MPP."
That was true.
It's true, I did. And he said, "Now in front of everybody, you read this." And I couldn't read it. And I said, "Why?" And then at that time, that was the only insurance policy we had. My husband was very, very ill. He was not working.
But the insurance that you personally had with Martin Marietta?
Yeah, and my husband could not work, and that was my only income. And he said, "You will read this." And he brought everybody up, and he stuck the MPP in front of me, and he said, "You will read it because you could have caused thousands of dollars of mistakes and could have killed somebody if these had gotten the wrong part of the missile." And I couldn't read it. And he turned red in the face. He got angry with me, and everybody stood there looking at me. And I did exactly what any person who was illiterate would do. I fought back. And what I did is I looked him right in the face and I said, "You're making me so nervous. You're the one standing up here hollering about this. You read it."
And did
tell
he?
me, no. And he beat on the side of the desk and he says, "You're going to read this or you're fired." And I looked at him and I said, "Then I'm fired. Then I'll leave." Because I could not read it. And I told him, I said, "Richard, I can't read it. I don't even know what you want me to read." And he said, "Read it." And then he said, "You are acting," and this was bad. You see, his wife worked with the illiterate. And he said, "You're acting like them dumb people that my wife works with." He said, if I had not worked with you for 3 years, I would swear you was as stupid and dumb as they are. You couldn't read."
And
that did it. And I looked at him, I said, "You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what you're saying, so don't say no more. If you want it read, you read it." And he said, "Get your stuff and leave," and I did.
So you lost your job?
No, I didn't. I went into I was shaking. I was so upset. And I went into the break room, and I was having a cup of coffee when he came in there, and he beat the side of the table, and he got red in the I thought he was going to hit me, and he said, "Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you, when I brought you up, why wouldn't you read it?" And I said, "You just don't know what you're saying. You don't know what you're saying. There's a lot of things about people, you don't know what you're saying." And I couldn't read it. And I said, "You made me too nervous to read it."
So you laid the guilt back on Richard?
Right. And he transferred me into a different department because he said he couldn't. He said, I can't have anybody working for me that won't listen to me. And I worked for him for years. And I said, "Then transfer me out because I'm not going to come in there and be talked to like that." And I did. And I went on into a different department and did the same thing in that department I did in the other one. And I stayed there until we moved.
Did you continue to make circuit boards?
Yeah, I did the same thing. It's just for a different section of Martin, yeah. Because he thought that I was personally doing it to him. And he couldn't tolerate any of his employees not following his directions. But it wasn't to him. It was that I couldn't read it.
Did it ever occur to you that the kind of work you were doing, did you feel any guilt or anything after that happened?
No. It had occurred to me to make sure I always had people check the MPP.
So if there were any pages that looked new or different or anything,
I always sit by somebody.
You compensated again.
And I would say, is there any changes in that MPP today? And I always made sure that
So they still didn't know you couldn't read,
No.
even when they transferred you to another supervisor?
No one ever found out. I was very careful not to let anyone find out. I wouldn't even be telling today if I couldn't read. If I had not come as far as I've come, and I wouldn't be telling it today. But you think about other people who can't read and how they feel inside, because it's a terrible feeling inside. It's a lonely feeling. And if they feel that there's no hope, there is hope. And I know that people who are illiterate do the same things that I've always done. And it's habits. I still have them. There's still a lot of things that I don't break my habits.
What would you recommend if someone was illiterate today? What would you recommend they do if they were afraid to come out of the house?
Find someone like me to go with them, hold their hand until their fear is gone. Because you don't have to be afraid.
What if they're in a workplace now? If they're in a company or they're in a corporation such as
There's
you
a lot
were,
of them.
and there are a lot of them, you say, why do you say that?
Because I see them.
How do you?
I watch people. I've always watched people. And when you're with someone, you can be in a room for them. I think that people associate. And I watch how illiterate, I know what I did, and I see other people who are illiterate do the same thing.
Such as?
Such as get other people to do their work. Get other people to hand you something. Say, if for instance, maybe you might want them to go someplace for you, they'll say, well, write it down for me. I'm real busy. They stay busy.
Is that one of the words they say a lot? I'm real busy. Will you do this for me?
Yeah, or I left my glasses at home.
Left my glasses.
Or my glasses broke. Or I had a way of holding my hand, saying, gosh, I've hurt my hand today. Could you write that for me? Or another one is, you have such beautiful handwriting. Would you mind? And people do it. They just automatically do it.
Well, that's certainly been a fascinating story, Judy. And we really enjoy you having come with us today to talk about the situation you've really lived growing up illiterate in the United States and learned to overcome it. We wish you lots of success.
Thank you.
Thank you.